Bem-vindos ao segundo dia do 13º Minho Medical Meeting. A primeira sessão do dia traz-nos a doutora Nadine Hachach-Haram, uma inovadora e curiosa cirurgiã britânica que nos falará da empresa que fundou, a Proximie, um projeto que procura globalizar a cirurgia e a educação para a saúde, garantindo uma plataforma de realidade aumentada que permite que especialistas possam participar virtualmente em cirurgias e apoiar, treinar e monitorizar o trabalho de outros cirurgiões, mesmo que estejam afastados por milhares de quilómetros.
Dear colleagues, dear participants, welcome to the second day of the 13th edition of the Minho Medical Meeting, another day of promising and inspiring lectures, debates and workshops. And no one better to start this second day of talks than Dr. Nadine Hachach-Haram and Proximie. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Nadine for her availability, kindness, and effort to be present here today and to share knowledge, experience, and pioneering work with the audience of almost 400 curious medical students. It is a real honor and privilege to have such an inspiring, curious, and innovative surgeon present at our event. I do believe this session also proves what Proximie stands for, which is the urge to globalize surgery, but also to share medical knowledge and to guarantee everyone, everywhere, has the opportunity to learn from the best. Dr. Nadine Hachach-Haram is a consultant plastic surgeon and head of clinical innovation at Guy's and St. Thomas at National Health System Foundation Trust, and a clinical entrepreneur. Driven by her passion for technology, education, and global surgery, in 2015, Dr. Nadine co-founded Proximie and is the current CEO of the company. Since then, she has traveled the world in lectures and TED Talks to promote and expose the revolutionary work of the company she leads. Proximie is a project that seeks to globalize surgery and healthcare, providing an augmented reality platform that allows doctors to virtually participate in real-time surgeries and support, train and monitor the work of other surgeons, even if they are thousands of miles away. Proximie is focused on ensuring that every patient, every single time, has access to the best specialists and surgical care, helping to make healthcare more equal, efficient, and fair. Dr. Nadine has multiple scientific and technological awards, and Proximie was dubbed the future of surgery by CNN. In this talk, Dr. Nadine will expose her motivations and perspectives for the future of surgery, in addition to revealing all the details of this art of connecting surgeons. Dr. Nadine, once again, thank you very much, and I believe the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to share with you all what we've been working on over the past year. Perhaps to add to your introduction, I'll give a little bit more intro about what drove me to design Proximie, to create Proximie. But ultimately, what we will be talking about today is how do we really shift the paradigm in surgery? My background, as you said, is trained as a reconstructive plastic surgeon. And I was really trying really hard early on to think about how do we restore form and function for patients? How do we give them a better quality of life? And so I trained in that capacity for many years in the areas of breast and pelvic cancer. But like many other surgeons, I was always interested in how can I continue to make impact beyond myself, beyond my clinical practice. So I got involved in global health, worked in global health initiatives overseas, but I also got introduced to the medical device industry, looking at how do we scale new products and new devices to make sure that doctors get access to these. And at some point after 10 years, it became very clear to me that no matter how much I traveled, I still wasn't shifting the needle in terms of clinical care, that the amount of variation in access and variation in quality was still too high. Too many patients weren't getting access to the care that they needed. Too many medical students and trainees weren't getting access to the training opportunities. And even within our single health system here in the UK or in the US, there was a variation in terms of the care you get in one hospital versus another. And so this idea of variation was something very palpable. Here, for example, in the UK, you're 14 times more likely to suffer complications in colorectal surgery between one hospital and another. And the numbers go on, 36 times more likely to suffer from cataract procedures in Sweden. And in the US, you're 3 times more likely to die from surgery in the lower performing hospitals and the higher performing hospitals. So what is clear is that where you live determines if you live or how you live. And I think you'd agree that this is no longer acceptable. in this fourth technological revolution, that patients still are lacking this basic access is beyond us now. And it's unacceptable today that 5 billion people around the world lack access to safe surgery. And so I started to think, why is this the way it is? And you have to think about the creation of surgery, the genesis of surgery. If you look on the picture on the left, surgery was created with this idea that communication, collaboration, and co-presence allows us to enhance our skills and work together to drive innovation in surgery. And whilst that worked for them, fast forward many, many years later to the picture on the right, and we have not adapted our models. We're still doing the same thing. We're still putting lots of people in an operating room and hoping that we can scale surgery this way. Now, of course, this was pre-COVID, and since COVID, this is no longer the case. But now what happens? And I'm sure you'd agree that from this picture, this doesn't necessarily demonstrate a high quality of skill acquisition and learning. This is very variable. So it was clear to me that, communication, connectivity can really save lives, can really make that difference. How do we start to tap into these tools to try and bridge this gap in surgery? How do we change from a very traditional methodology of learning, of see one, do one, teach one, to something more comprehensive, more connected, and more digitized? Prepare, perform, perfect. How do we change the way we deliver surgery throughout our career? I started to think about this in the context of sports. I used to play soccer as a kid, and I'm sure many of you on this call have played one sport or another. They always talk about this idea of coaching and the game tape. Well, let's look at this analogy in surgery and how can we bridge that understanding across two different disciplines.
The pursuit, being better, the marginal gain, the unfair advantage. We've all been looking for it, no matter what we do. The truth is, there is no shortcut, no easy route. Technology is changing our pursuit. It's evolving before our eyes, creating endless possibilities. Just look at the world of sport, the modern quarterback, the new age domestique, the pre-game plan, the post-game review. Every angle, every possibility, every inch. Watched, reviewed, understood, applied. What about the clinical world? At Proximie, we enable clinicians to virtually scrub in and collaborate with each other from anywhere in the world. Allowing any clinician to prepare.
What I tend to use is a horizontal incision.
To perform.
Everything is about triangles and the proper planes of dissection. So the top of your triangle is where you're going to come across.
And perfect their craft.
Question there?
Yeah, Dan, I wondered if you make a comment as to how you pitch that as it's such that the labrum is flushed to that preparation zone.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, John.
Pre, during, after. Think of us as your game tape. Start your pursuit today. Plug in Proximie. Connect clinicians. Save lives.
So what you would have seen in that video is this real capability of changing the paradigm in surgery. And so to address that, we really thought, how do we bring together some key factors to digitize the operating room? From communication to immersiveness with augmented reality and to data and artificial intelligence. And that's what Proximie is. It's this platform that brings all these tools together to change how we do things in the operating room. From a Proximie Live component, which streams up to 4 high-definition feeds from any operating room or cath lab, you can virtually scrub in, collaborate, watch, learn, engage, and immerse yourself in that experience simply by using a laptop or a phone. Then you're able to record that case into a library, and that library is now a live content view for you. You can engage that case as a live collaborative review, you can peer review it with your colleagues, and you can start to really aggregate learning from many different centers. We are truly a global business with a global client base. Since the last 18 months, we've launched into close to 300 hospitals globally, delivering close to 10,000 cases, close to 1,000 cases a month now, working in 40 countries and with over 40 medical device companies. And we've published over 20 to 25 papers providing evidence around Proximie. What's really important about this is to tell you that this is not a solution for some parts of the world. The problems I told you about earlier are not for just the developing world or the global south. Problems in variation and access are global. Whether you're in the US, in Europe, in Africa, in APAC, it's the same. It's just dressed differently. And so Proximie is scaling globally. We have over 100 hospitals in the US, close to 20% of the NHS already, scaling across Europe. And of course, we'd love anyone interested to reach out. And of course, also supporting the global south and developing countries that need help as well. And we support training, preceptorship, proctorship, and expanding capacity, because now a doctor in a single place can support many nurses and doctors in many more places and upskill and deliver care. And it's that ability to bring all these key tools together that I mentioned that make this unique, that hasn't existed before. That 360 view is so essential. If you're a student or a resident or a fellow or a surgeon helping in a cath lab, it's really important to be able to see all the different views. What's the fluoroscopy telling us? What are the hemodynamics telling us? Can I see the wide view? Can I see the close view? And independent screens that you can monitor and work with independently. And so our use cases are broad across cardiology, orthopedics, plastics, head and neck, colorectal, urology, but more so like gynecology, neurovascular, and many, many more. And so I'll show you some videos now of this platform in use, and hopefully this will help raise some questions later. So in this particular video, the surgeon is sitting, a surgeon who's advising is sitting in Amsterdam, and he's dialed in on his laptop in between clinics. And he's dialed into a case in Cardiff, and they're working together through this case. And you'll see the augmented reality and the communication working so seamlessly.
Just make it a vertical line. Just mark 6 o'clock in the mucosa that stays, so you've got a, that's it. Good. That's a new one. Yeah, so that if the patient is twisted in a left-sided position, that you know where 6 o'clock is. Just mark 6 o'clock in the mucosa that stays, so you've got a, yeah, that's it. That's a new one. Yeah, so that if the patient is twisted in a left-sided position, that you know.
So you're seeing the mirror image from the laptop and then again in the operating room. In real time, you're able to see that experience.
Pull upwards, pulling with your left hand, yeah. And in this area here, you're gonna do 2-3 centimeters, where you're gonna open just 2-3 centimeters. With your left hand, pull upwards, pulling with your left hand, yeah. And in this.
And now we're going to look at a cardiac procedure. This was during the height of COVID. We had an expert from Washington dialing into a doctor in London to deliver a really, really important life-saving case for this patient.
So, how's the image quality there?
Very good. It's a good maybe 3 centimeters in front.
There it is. There we can see it. So we can just actually now.
So now you need to tighten all your guides up.
So that multidimensional view is so important when you're doing a cardiac procedure, an interventional procedure. And now this is a neurovascular case where a senior doctor in one hospital was training a fellow to do a case in another.
We go in and we put a stent. Rikio, can you see the orange markings I made on the lateral?
Yes, I think to me that's my favorite feature of the software is that careful, don't go in a branch.
But it looks good. Keep pushing. Yes, very good. Yeah, I think you're good.
There we go.
That's perfect.
Excellent.
What do you think, Wendy? I think it's good.
Yeah, so literally maybe a millimeter back, but
yes, I agree. If we can pull it back a hair.
Yeah, and then while he's inflating, really keep it steady. Soham, like don't let it go forward. Just a whiff back, literally a tiny bit.
I think it looks excellent. What do you think, Wendy?
It looks perfect.
This is not an easy case. This is a tortuous intracranial atherosclerotic disease patient
And of course, it's about human impact and human stories. This is Mo, a 30-plus-year-old patient who had metastatic testicular cancer at the height of COVID. Normally, this was wrapped around his vessels in his abdomen. And normally, the way we would have resected it in our hospital was through a laparotomy. But given the concern around COVID and having him stay in hospital, we decided to do this robotically and have an expert who's done many of these dial in from overseas. So Dr. Jim Porter dialed in from Seattle and worked with Dr. Archie Fernando to deliver this groundbreaking case. Mo went home at day 3 and was on the news doing an interview a week later. And Archie described it like being a tennis player on the tennis court, having a coach in the wings. That ability to collaborate and work with someone overseas is so helpful. Just having another pair of eyes can make such a difference for you when you're in a difficult case. And we do many of these where we're supporting robotics and laparoscopic cases, overlaying images and scans that can be essential. That overlay of anatomy can be so useful in learning and education when you're thinking about surgical landmarks and how you can bring these tools together. Imagine for medical students who can learn, being able to overlay anatomical images can really enhance that learning in a much more immersive way. And of course, it's about scalability and accessibility. Proximie is so easy to use across so many different devices that even the UK military has selected Proximie as their platform of choice and use us in the field in many of their operations in dangerous areas. We're very proud, of course, of what we've done and have been fairly well recognized in the press, but this is always back down to stories and impact. We're waiting for you, the users, to share your stories with us, your cases, your impact. How did this help you? So that we can add you to our channels and celebrate you as individuals. And we see the future being ever more exciting as space and medtech work together to continue to save more lives globally. As we bring together connectivity from low orbiting satellites and connections, we will continue to see these solutions scale and make a difference. We will continue to be able to touch each other virtually and help and change the paradigm in surgery. We will continue to work to make sure that 18.6 million people don't die because of complications of surgery around the world. And as a final note, I would love to share with you perhaps a story, a personal story. This is a story of a 55-year-old patient who unfortunately had suffered many complications from an abdominal laparotomy. She was in hospital on and off for years in intensive care. She almost bled to death once or twice and was left with a very bad abdominal hernia. Anytime she moved or coughed, the whole abdomen would shift forward. She found this really difficult to live this way and was going in and out of hospital constantly with obstruction or pseudo-obstruction. Eventually, she turned to us and said, "I can't live like this anymore. This is not a good quality of life." Unfortunately, her local doctor, who was a very good surgeon, didn't have a lot of expertise in this particular procedure because it's not something he saw commonly. But she knew that there was a world expert in London who did this quite regularly. And so naturally, you normally expect people to travel to that center to get the care that they need. But she reached out to me and said, "I want Proximie to help me. I want to stay home with my family. I want to stay close to my support network, but I want this expert to dial in with my surgeon on Proximie to deliver this case." And so we obliged. And the expert dialed in from London. They were in Beirut. They worked together and they reconstructed her abdomen. 5 hours later, she was in recovery. And a week later, she was at home. 6 months later, she was on the beach in a swimsuit playing with her grandchildren like nothing ever happened. And this patient is my mother. And so I hope this story resonates with you because ultimately, if we're willing to put our own parents through this, then really we truly believe in this technology for the world and for the future. So I want to thank you all very much, and I hope that you will join us on our mission and continue to reach out and be champions for our solutions in your hospitals, in your medical schools, because I can tell you that in the last year, we have grown 10 times in our users. We have grown about 600% in the number of procedures we do. And we are looking for more and more people to reach out and to work with us and to bring these solutions so that every operating room in the future will be powered by Proximie. Thank you.
Dr. Nadine, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm really stunned by what you showed us today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, but also for sharing your own experience, your family experience. And I believe now that we are ready to do some discussion and to make you some questions. We have already some questions here in our platform. So I'm going to start with the first one. So how do you manage the possible error rate linked to the fact that surgeons are performing techniques for the first time in real patients without a more experienced doctor ready to scrub in?
I think, there's two separate things here. First of all, any surgeon who's operating on a patient needs to make sure that they're competent or feel safe to do that. And if not, have the right expertise available. Now, that expertise can be in person, but it could be virtual. Proximie published a paper that demonstrated that using Proximie is equivalent to having an expert in the room. And so if you're able to scale expertise that way, then it's important to do that. I think we need to realize that surgery has followed a mantra of see one, do one, teach one. But if we can find ways that, I'm sure do one isn't always a proficient expert doing them. And so finding ways to connect experts and bring that expertise together is really, really important. That's what Proximie is trying to do.
Thank you for your answer. We have another one. So, are you working on any project now or on adding a new feature to Proximie to improve it even more?
We're always evolving the platform. We have an exciting technology team with people from Google, from Verily, from technology companies all around the world working on Proximie. And our product roadmap continues to evolve. As we imagine a world where every operating room is powered by Proximie, this will bring together a connected ecosystem, connected surgical care, data analytics and machine learning, and an ability to really change the paradigm of surgery beyond space or time.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answer. We have another one. So it is indisputable that Proximie is already changing the paradigm among surgeons, but have you already reached medical students or medical education?
In the UK, we have, and in other parts of the world, we have every week hundreds of medical students dialing into cases at my hospital to engage and learn, and we want to do more of that. We actually launched a campaign here in the UK a few months ago where we partnered with the largest surgical trainee community called ASIT, close to 3,000 members. And we launched the commitment that we were going to support them in surgical training over the year. And we'd love to do that with any organizations around the world. So please do reach out to us at info@proximie.com and we will do that.
So regarding the reaching out and the way we can reach you, so surgeons reach you by themselves, or there is an institution like an hospital or even a health system, a public health system that reaches you? So how this dynamic goes on?
Both. So we have surgeons who reach out to us and say, we'd like to use your platform, and we work with them to onboard their organization. Or we have organizations that come to us directly and then onboard all their surgeons. We're flexible both ways, and we will have people working with you to make sure that that journey is seamless.
Thank you very much. We have another one. So what is the estimate cost of implementing this technology in an hospital? Can individuals independently work with Proximie and use this service?
Probably it's variable depending on the institution, how many cases, how many users. It's a licensing model. So what I would ask is, for whoever's asking that question, please do reach out and we will work with you to share that model with you. So again, if you just email us at info@proximie.com and tell us, what you're thinking, how many users, how many cases, we'll work with you through that. What is great about Proximie is very cost effective and very cost efficient, but it's really important that we get a bit more information before we quote pricing.
Okay, thank you very much. And I urge you all to reach Proximie. And if you are interested, I believe Dr. Nadine is available to speak a little bit with you about this amazing platform. So we have another question. So what do you think is a way to bring these technology and support to developing countries? So how do you reach the developing countries?
So we already work with many NGOs and many institutions in developing countries to support them in scale. The beauty about Proximie is that it is hardware neutral. So you can simply use your phone or your tablet or your computer and you can connect. All you need in the operating room is a webcam and a laptop, and you're able to stream and scale as much as you want. And so it's very accessible. And the other thing is that Proximie was designed to work on low bandwidth. We recognize that in a lot of health systems, the internet connectivity isn't great. So we designed it to deliver an ultra low latency experience on low bandwidth and to be hardware neutral. And so you would have seen perhaps a month or two ago in the Telegraph, they published an article about a patient in Benin in Africa who needed to have their kidney stones removed. The doctor who's great there wanted some support and some advice. We dialed in experts from LA and from Eastbourne in the UK, and they worked together with him to deliver that, life-changing care to that patient. And so we see this happening all the time. We're doing work in Kenya, we're doing work in other parts of the world as well.
And following this question, we have another one. A medical student asks you if you could share a little bit more of Proximie's impact on developing countries. What impact have you already made there?
So we've already demonstrated skill acquisition. We've been able to increase and enhance skill acquisition by close to 30%. We've demonstrated the accelerated learning timeline. We've been able to half the time it takes to train someone. We've demonstrated cost effectiveness because now you're able to do this in real time remotely without having to wait for charity missions to fly in. We've demonstrated connectivity, people feeling well supported, coached, mentored, and ultimately we've demonstrated impact on lives. The other bit I think that's important to recognize as part of the SDG programs globally is that we've also made an impact on carbon footprint. We've saved close to 1 million miles of travel, of kilometers in carbon footprint in 1 quarter. And so that is really important when we start to think about how we impact the world as well.
Proximie has already reached more than 40 countries. And one question we've all been waiting for, is there any institution in Portugal that is already using Proximie?
Not that I'm aware of, but we are delighted to work with an institution in Portugal. So please reach out to us. We would love to work with you to deliver this. I had the pleasure of visiting a few years ago one of your hospitals, and I would love for this to become mainstay in all your hospitals and medical schools.
That's great. So we have another one. The questions just keep coming in. So given that not all countries are in the same technological development levels in terms of surgical material, for example, is Proximie still useful in those cases?
Absolutely. There are 330 million procedures that happen every year around the world. And we have used Proximie in every type of use case, from a nurse looking at a wound to supporting a small mole removal to a big complicated robotic procedure. We can do it across the board. That ability to virtually scrub in and reach in is not limited to specialties, and it's not limited to complexity. We are shifting the paradigm across the surgical ecosystem, and that is inclusive of everything.
And how are you trying to expand this project to reach more and more people and create a new surgical paradigm?
Well, as you see, we take 3 approaches. 1 is we work with hospitals directly. 2 is we work with medical device companies that are introducing new techniques to hospitals and surgeons. And 3, we work with surgical societies and medical student societies to help empower them to become our early champions and our early, believers in Proximie, taking it to their institutions. So we've partnered with many surgical groups at medical school, at a national level to make that difference here in the UK, but also more globally.
And I believe the pandemic really forced us to readapt us and readapt the way we do surgery and the way we do medicine. So do you think, and Proximie really connects surgeons even during a pandemic. So do you think this pandemic will shift the surgery paradigm and will make people look more closely to Proximie and they will want to be part of this platform and to be part of the challenge as well?
It's a great question, and I think you're absolutely right. What COVID did is it catalyzed the fundamental behavior change, something that was needed, but unfortunately we needed a pandemic to catalyze that change, which has been really awful to see so many people suffer from. But what it did is it demonstrated that these are the solutions of the future. And this is not going to go back to the way things were when hopefully everything subsides with COVID. We've now opened people's eyes to a new potential, a new everything. Why do I need to travel for a day to get to another country to join an operation? I can just dial in on my laptop. That ability, and we've seen this on many other platforms as well, to change is key. And so we've seen a huge growth in people using our platform and wanting. We went from 20 hospitals to 300 hospitals in less than 6 months. So this is the future. It's here to stay. And we need champions and clinical teams to continue to embrace it and drive the change forward.
Yes, as you once said, I believe that innovation, necessity is really the mother of innovation. And yes, we have to readapt ourselves every time, right? So one more question. Do you believe Proximie is being used in more complex and difficult and more exclusive medical procedures and surgeries, or it is still being used to do some common procedures, but in less developing countries that need to learn how to do more simple surgeries as well?
We're doing everything from, how do I take a mole out, to how do I review a wound, to how do I do a complex procedure. It's not limited to one specialty. We're supporting across the board.
And how do you shape the future of surgery? Do you believe Proximie will be a huge part of that future?
Absolutely. I mean, the future of surgical care is connected surgical care. It's immersive, it's data-driven, it's connected, it's impactful. And that's what Proximie is here to do. And we're here to bring the best of human expertise with the most advanced technologies to save lives and make a difference.
Okay. And I believe you are already making a difference, and you'll make and you'll keep on doing that. You'll keep on that challenge. Another question. So we know that medical doctors and mainly surgeons, they travel the world during their careers to learn how to do procedures. Even you, I believe, you had to travel a lot just to learn how to do some simple procedures and to improve yourself. So do you believe that way of educating surgeons, the congresses and other platforms will be less important, and this way of connecting people online will be a new paradigm?
I think this is going to be one very important tool in how we shift the surgical paradigm. This is about globalizing surgery and digitizing operating rooms. Imagine how much we can bring all the world's operating rooms together into a virtual platform, crowdsource expertise, and then redistribute it to as many people who want to learn from it. Imagine in every case, you can have 20, 30, 40 surgeons dialing in from all around the world to engage, to see, to learn, to give ideas and give suggestions. It's, there's a reciprocity in surgery. It's about learning, but it's also about giving suggestions. And so that ability to do that simply by using your laptop is the future of where we're going to be, that ability to just be connected, not have to travel to be there and to see these things.